growing up, I went to St. Vincent Catholic School since I was in preschool. And I was baptized at 6 weeks old, Catholic. My whole family grew up Catholic. After I stopped going to church at St. Vincent, I drifted away from God tremendously. In high school, I was hanging around the wrong people. I was a people pleaser. I wanted to be in the in crowd. So I was drifting away from God, and I still did wonderful in high school. I graduated in the 10th% of my class with the academic honors and technical honors. And then the biggest change was when I went to IUPUI in 2012, right after I graduated. In college, I just went from 0 to 100 very quickly, and I ended up flunking out my first semester due to drinking and being out all night and just hanging around the wrong people. And so my dream of becoming a nurse quickly dwindled away very quickly. I had a huge dream for my life, and I was doing everything that was not it. At age 20, I got pregnant with a little boy that everyone knows, Hudson, and I was a single mother. It was very difficult. I went into a very deep depression, and I went to drugs and drinking very, very quickly after I had Hudson, and CPS became involved when he was 2 years old, and that is what I feel like God put certain people in my life to make that phone call to CPS, who are wonderful friends of mine to this day, and I believe they saved my life. God helped me see what all I would be leaving behind if something was to happen to me. I met my late fiance in 2017, and we soon after had our daughter, Olivia. She's a little spunky and sassy, but she's wonderful. In 2018 we had her, and we moved away soon after. I think she was around 4 months old when we moved to Greenville, Kentucky, because Craig got a better job down there. So we moved away from everything that I had ever known, everything that my children had ever known, which was very, very difficult. We went from having a fellowship in a church and friends and family to literally starting from the ground up. We didn't have anyone, and I grew away from God once again. I kind of was just living and not focusing on what God's plan was for me and for my children, and I became very depressed. I stopped praying, and I just stopped everything that I knew God had planned for me. And eventually we moved back to Indiana in 2019. In November of 2019, Craig, my fiance, he overdosed, and me and the kids were the ones to find him in our home. And 2 days later he passed away. He was on life support. I remember driving away from the hospital on Sunday, November 24th, and I remember the only thing that I could think of was, you need God, you need God. It was soon after Restoration started their early service, and it was a rainy day, and I drove straight here. I hadn't showered in a couple of days. I had just left the hospital. I was a mess and still in shock. And I remember Pam, the person that led me to this church, she opened the doors in the fellowship hall, and she had an umbrella, and she came to my car, and all I said was, "He's gone." The worship team was practicing, and everyone just stopped and knelt around me at the altar and just prayed with me and cried with me, and that was the biggest turning point in my faith, and I hold on to that every single day. Later that night, I remember laying in bed crying and just not understanding why, but I never asked why, and that was different than anything before. It was just, I didn't understand, but all I could think of was, I'm not supposed to. And I remember for just a few seconds, I was just paralyzed with God's love, all of God's love, and it only could last a couple seconds because it was just so intense. But that was most definitely a turning point in my life, and I continue to tell my story to others to help them know that they're not alone in trauma and in grief, and it is okay to not be okay. God is always there with you. I am very excited about what the future holds for me, what God has planned for me. For the first time in my life, I feel like I have found my purpose, and that is due to God's story that has been played through me. And I am going to school to become a chemical dependency counselor. That is 100% what I believe God has planned for me. I cannot wait to show people that God can change your life. I would love for everyone to know that I am not the person that I used to be, that God has completely transformed my life in so many ways. I don't know if I would still be alive and be able to watch my kids grow up if it wasn't for God just wrapping his arms around me in the amidst the biggest tragedy that I have ever been through. And it could have gone either way. I could have went back and turned completely away from God, or I could have just let him hold me. And I am just so grateful that I chose to let him carry me through it, and I cannot wait to help someone one day. One person, one life saved will be worth it. It'll fulfill my purpose. So I'm just I love life.